What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. WBO welterweight champion Terrence Bud Crawford. I have him number one on my pound for pound list. He's been in negotiations with unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. for months. Terrence Crawford was last seen in the ring in November when he did to Sean Porter what no other fighter did to Sean Porter. Stopped Sean Porter inside 12 rounds and further cemented his legacy and his claim as the number one pound for pound fighter in boxing today. Now the number two guy that I have on the pound for pound rankings, Errol Spence Jr. and his team, led by Al Heyman, was in negotiations ever since he defeated April 16th, if I'm not mistaken. He defeated Yordenis Ugas, who held a title in the WBA. That was a unification fight. That fight was a one-way traffic as Errol Spence Jr. dominated, dismantled, dissected Yordenis Ugas like no other fighter has done to Yordenis Ugas, who's one of the top fighters in the welterweight division and who was coming off a career best win over Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. I got one question for Terrence Crawford. As reports came out yesterday that he will be taking on David Avaneysan, who's an underrated welterweight. Very good fighter. Very good fighter. Conor Ben didn't want no smoke with him. Frank Warren, who promotes David Avaneysan, was trying to make that fight for the last year. And Conor Ben and his team don't fancy the fight. David Avaneysan beat Sugar Shane Mosley. Sugar Shane Mosley is a faded version of himself when he fought David Avaneysan, but Sugar Shane Mosley was still a high caliber fighter. He wasn't the Sugar Shane Mosley that defeated Oscar De La Hoya, or the Sugar Shane Mosley that defeated Fernando Vargas. He wasn't that same Sugar Shane Mosley, but he was still a high quality fighter. He was a guy that was losing to guys like Canelo Alvarez, who was had arrived at that time, was a good young prospect that was looking for a fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Sugar Shane Mosley had lost to Miguel Cotto in a very good fight. That fight is not talked about like it should be talked about. That was one of the best. I don't know if that fight was at 154 or 147, whatever the case may be. That was one of the best. I believe it was at 154. It could have been at 147. That was one of the best fights in and around those two weight classes that I've seen in a long time. And that fight took place at MSG, Madison Square Garden. That was a great matchup. Great matchup. That was a firefight. Both of them guys were landing bombs. And Miguel Cotto got the edge. It was a very close fight. I thought I had to fight maybe 7 rounds to 5 for Miguel Cotto. I could have easily seen it being 6-6. It was a very exciting fight. If you guys don't remember that fight, go to YouTube and rewatch that fight. That was one of the best fights of this past decade that they don't really talk about. You know, that fight was right up there with the Sean Porter, Keith Thurman fight. They were throwing bombs, man, in that fight, throwing bombs. And both of those guys showed that they had chins, had strong chins. With all that being said, Terrence Crawford, what took you so long? I said this in previous videos. If you didn't like the terms of the contract, you didn't like the guarantee, you didn't like the split, then why didn't you do this a long time ago? Why did you do this months ago? Is my question to Terrence Crawford. I have no problem with Terrence Crawford walking away from the fight if he don't like the terms of the fight. Now he's trying to make Errol Spence Jr. wear the black hat, saying Errol Spence Jr. really didn't want to fight, that he wanted to get a fight in before the end of the year, that Errol Spence Jr. and his team wanted the fight to take place in February. But I recall that Errol Spence Jr. had let it be known that he was fighting November 19th with or without Terrence Crawford. Right after that, Terrence Crawford came out and said he agreed to everything. He waiting on the PBC to make the fight happen. And then negotiations continue. Why didn't negotiations continue when you agreed to everything? But that wasn't nothing but a lie that was leaked by Team Crawford to Michael Carpenter, who has no ties to the PBC, and Lance Pudmeyer, who writes for, he's a boxing writer, and he does work for Fight Hype, which is very closely aligned with Floyd Mayweather Jr., but he don't have any direct ties to the PBC. You listen to those two guys. You listen to those two guys. Terence Crawford, in my opinion, dragged these negotiations along, knowing good and damn well he wasn't gonna fight Errol Spence Jr. He had got into a situation in these negotiations that he was like, okay, if I don't think I can get this fight done this year, I'm gonna take a tune-up fight or interim fight, however you want to call it, David Avaneysan fight. I actually rate David Avaneysan. I think he's an underrated welterweight. He ain't gonna beat Terence Crawford, but I actually rate David Avaneysan. He said the fight ain't gonna get done this year. I don't like the terms of the deal any goddamn way. Even though I agreed to it, I really didn't want to do it, but I kind of felt like my hand was forced because Errol Spence Jr. was gonna fight in November with or without me, so I'm gonna play along and play the game and make it look like, okay, yeah, I agree to everything, and I'm gonna drag these negotiations along. All along, I'm negotiating behind the scenes. I ain't letting the PBC know a goddamn thing. I'm negotiating behind the scenes with David Avaneysan. And Frank Warren, you know, you see him doing a lot of videos here recently. He never brought up his fight of David Avaneysan was in negotiation with Bud Crawford. But Bud Crawford obviously had put a gag order on all parties involved, said we ain't gonna talk about this till this fight is done. Because I can remember when they asked him about David Avaneysan, he said David Avaneysan was finna fight a domestic level fight at the end of the year. That's what Frank Warren said, but that don't look like that's gonna happen. Because David Avaneysan, if you believe Michael Carpenter, and you know, if you don't believe him, I can't knock you because he done lied before. But if you believe what he said in the article that the fight is done for December 10th, and this cable company, my bad, not cable company, this pay-per-view company, BK Prime, I'm hearing that it's a black-owned company, and that's a good thing. I'm also hearing that Terence Crawford is gonna get $10 million. And if that is the case, look for BK Prime to file Chapter 11 at the end of this year. Because there ain't no way in hell you're gonna pay Terence Crawford $10 million. And you know David Avaneysan probably getting at least $2 million. At least $2 million. So that's $12 million. And you putting it on a nondescript pay-per-view. You're putting it in Omaha, Nebraska, which you will sell out, but what's going to be the gate? You know, Terence Crawford ain't fought in Omaha, Nebraska in a long time, and there's a reason why he ain't fought that in a long time, because when his pay went up, he had to move around from fighting in his hometown. He had to fight at MSG and fight at different locations, Las Vegas, different locations, so Top Rank could try to recoup some of that money that they was paying Terence Crawford, especially the upfront money that they was paying Terence Crawford. With all that being said, Errol Spence Jr. should move on. A lot of people out here saying, well, it's not going to happen this year, but I won't be a bit surprised that it happens next year. Then Errol Spence Jr. say that if the fight don't happen now, he don't see it ever happening. Errol Spence Jr. said he has been killing himself to make 147 for over a decade now, and that he's ready to move up. So I look for him to move up to 154. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he moves up to 155 and fight a catchweight versus Ezri Lara, who is the regular WBA middleweight champion. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But a lot of people gonna play the blame game. A lot of people gonna blame Bud. A lot of people gonna blame Errol. I just think that Bud was not happy with the terms. I just wish he would have just done this months ago. What this gonna end up doing is Errol Spence Jr. probably not gonna get no fight this year. He said that on his tweet that, hey man, this dude been stalling for months. I could have fought in November. Now that seems to be off the table. He'll be fighting in February because December is locked in for Tank Davis Showtime pay-per-view, hopefully against Ryan Garcia. So I don't see the fight between Errol Spence Jr. and whoever he's fighting at 154 or maybe 155 catchweight versus Ezri Lara. I don't see that fight happening in December. So we will see what happens. And we will see what transpires. You know, this thing dragged on for a long, long time. A lot of people saying that, man, the PBC didn't really want the fight. Stephen Espinosa basically shut down this fight. They paid Canelo Alvarez his money while they can't pay Terence Crawford his money. But the problem with that is, you got Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford pulling from the same fan base, the African-American fan base, and that seems to be a problem. When you look at Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, you got two distinct fan bases. You got the African-American fan base, and you got the Latino fan base. That's why they seem to be more eager to make that fight than they was to make Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. fight. I think the PBC wanted to make that fight, but they wanted to make that fight at a certain number, and they wasn't going over that number. You know, I think that was the main reason why this fight did not come to fruition. With all that being said, Terence Crawford will fight David Avaneysan December 10th. Now, that's going to be the same day that Teofimo Lopez is fighting Jose Pedraza, and that's going to be on ESPN. That's going to be right after the Heisman Trophy ceremony, which always produce high ratings for ESPN. So it'll be interesting to see what type of numbers that Terence Crawford versus David Avaneysan does. It's going to be going head-to-head with Teo versus Pedraza on ESPN. Then you got a nondescript pay-per-view company called BK Prime putting on this fight. I guess they the promoter too, putting on this fight. And then Terence Crawford allegedly is supposed to get $10 million for this fight, if you believe the rumor. I don't believe he getting no $10 million. Because if he getting $10 million, that fight is doomed from the start. If he getting $10 million. I support the BK Prime. That's a black-owned company. Give Terence Crawford credit for keeping the money in-house with the brothers. I appreciate that, but y'all should have started off with a little bit lower upfront money for Terence Crawford, if that indeed is true, him getting $10 million to fight David Avaneysan. I just want you guys to be successful. And for you to pay him $10 million off the rip, maybe you can throw the money in and you think maybe they'll pay dividends down the line. Maybe they got deep pockets, BK Prime. They say, we know we're going to take a bath on this fight, but this is just an investment that we investing in Terence Crawford. Now, Terence Crawford is 35 years old. He's a guy that keeps himself in tremendous shape. Wouldn't be a bit surprised if he fight well past 35, maybe all the way to 40 years old, maybe even beyond 40, because he keeps himself in tremendous shape. He don't drink, he don't party. Look at Bernard Executioner Hopkins. He was able to fight all the way to 50 years old. I don't see Terence Crawford hanging around that long. I think he's going to probably fight maybe till he turns 40, and I think he probably shuts it down at that. I say that at the latest. He fights at the latest until he's 40 years old. He seems to have a lot of other interests that he likes to do, and he's got a family. He might want to spend more time with his family and his wife and stuff like that. He's got a lot of fighters that fight at his gym over there in Colorado Springs, so I can see him being a trainer for guys like Keyshawn Davis, you know, guys like that. So him and Bo Mack, I can kind of see them kind of doing what Floyd Mayweather and Leonard Ellerbe are doing, as far as they're promoting fighters and stuff like that, and bringing those guys along kind of in a similar fashion. But I just think maybe Terence Crawford probably be more hands-on than Floyd Mayweather Jr. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Follow me on Facebook, Gerard.Briscoe.3551. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. Before I holler, one more thing before I'm about to forget this. Now, you're going to have some people come out here and say, all right, Errol Spence Jr., you couldn't get the fight done with Terence Crawford. Fight Jerome Boots Ennis. He's your mandatory in IBF. If and when that fight happens, it will not be at 147. It will be at 154. Errol Spence Jr. told you, I'm either fighting Crawford or I'm moving up. So look for him to move up to 154. So all the people saying, well, why don't you go and fight Keith One-Time Thurman and kind of finish that puzzle. You know, that little puzzle with Errol Spence Jr., Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, and Keith One-Time Thurman. The only two fighters out of that quartet is Errol Spence Jr. versus Keith Thurman. Everybody else done fought everybody. That just complete the puzzle. But he already said that he ain't fighting Keith One-Time Thurman. Keith One-Time Thurman did not give him an opportunity when he was a young lad coming up. And now the tables have turned. He's sitting at the top of the mountain, and Keith Thurman want a shot, he said he ain't trying to do it. And I believe that he's a man of his word, and I believe he means what he says and says what he means. And I don't think he's gonna make that fight happen. So forget about that fight. He's going up to 154. You got the WBA mandatory, Matheus Stionis. That could be kind of like a state budget fight, similar to the fight that Terrence Crawford is taking on with David Avaneysan. I don't see him taking on that fight. I think he moves up to 154 or maybe even 155 and fights Ezri Landry Lara at a catch weight of 155 for the WBA middleweight title. Now Lara, I heard a few days ago, was in negotiations, but there was early stages of negotiations with Danny Swift Garcia, so maybe he's not available. Maybe he's gonna stay in good faith and stay in negotiations with Team Garcia, but the bigger bag is for him to fight Errol Spence Jr. He'll make more money fighting Errol Spence Jr. than he would fighting Danny Garcia. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Follow me on Facebook, Gerard.Briscoe.3551. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports. The man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.